Content presented in Cheshire Corners is for educational and informational purposes only. Please consult a legal professional if you have any questions or concerns about the content of this disclaimer, this series, or the legal implications surrounding psychedelic substances in your jurisdiction.
Welcome to Cheshire Corners. My name is Rita Tsalyuk, and I will be your host as we trip through the looking glass. Today we have a special guest, and I'm very excited about this upcoming interview. We have with us L Friedman, started learning about Harry's work just a couple weeks ago, and I was so proud that I almost finished reading 3 of his research papers when I found out that Harris has over 200. So Harris is a PhD, professor, researcher, intimately involved with psychedelics, knows everything about them. So welcome, Harris, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hello. I'm a psychologist trained in clinical and organizational consulting psychology, and also I'm a long-term appreciator of experiences that can be obtained through psychedelic medicines. And my research is in a number of areas, including psychedelics, but primarily everything I do has a focus on transpersonal psychology and it's related to the other things that I research.
What is transpersonal psychology?
Well, there are many definitions of transpersonal psychology, and people in the field can't seem to agree on one definition. I recently edited a book called the Wiley-Blackwell Handbook of Transpersonal Psychology that has like 50 chapters in it or so. And what I did is I got the major figures who identify as being people in transpersonal psychology to write chapters. And so there are 50 different versions of transpersonal psychology or more based on each person's contribution to the book. But I can talk about my approach to transpersonal psychology, but not everybody agrees with me, and some people even don't like what I do who are in the field of transpersonal psychology. But I see transpersonal psychology as a field of psychology, and I see psychology as a science, an empirical approach to studying aspects of human beingness, and that just like we have a physical experience, we're embodied, and we are social, we also have aspects to ourselves that go beyond the individual level. One famous psychiatrist, Carl Jung, talked about this in terms of things like a collective unconscious.
Now, the distinction then between the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious then is that the personal is could be more involved with the immediate life of the individual, and the collective would be universal, would be the same elements of all men.
It would be collective.
Collective.
For instance, every society has collective problems.
Yes.
Collective convictions, and so on.
Yes.
Now, we are very much influenced by them.
Yes.
For instance, you belong to a certain political party or to a certain confession.
Yes.
And that can be a serious determinant of your behavior.
Yes.
Now, as long as your personal conflict doesn't touch upon it, it's no question, it doesn't appear. But the moment you transcend your personal sphere and come to your unpersonal determinants, say to the question, a political question, or any other social question, which really matters to you, then you are confronted with a collective problem, and then you have collective fruits.
Where deep inside, all of us share similar collective memories and collective behavior patterns, and that these things are not personal. The prefix trans means they go beyond the personal. So experiences that are deep and high and broad and universal can be seen as transpersonal. And one example would be mystical experiences where a person recognizes their profound interconnectedness with the world, and they go beyond seeing themselves just as an isolated individual, but as something more deep, more profound, that is interconnected, and possibly even in the realm of spirituality and religion. But transpersonal can be secular, or it can be understood in religious or spiritual terms. So I'm interested in things like transcendence, peak experiences that go beyond just being an isolated individual, experiences of interconnectedness with the environment, with other species, with humanity as a whole, many different ways that what we are is part of something much larger than ourselves, and in that way it's transpersonal.
Wow, this is even better than I thought. It's so cool. It's actually exactly what I want to talk about, I want to think about, exactly what I want to do. So it's so great, and I hope everybody is gonna really like our conversation, and for that reason, please press your like on your screens, because it will help us to move this video so other people can also see it. Please comment on it, please ask us questions, maybe disagree with us, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much, and I would like to ask you just a little bit on this. How the whole thing started for you?
Well, when I was coming of age as an undergraduate student at a university in Atlanta, I had the good fortune of meeting a professor named Thomas Altizer, and he was a very famous man at that time. He was on the cover of Time magazine and recognized as a very influential person. And he was a Methodist theologian by training, but he also was very influenced by people like Friedrich Nietzsche and the Death of God movement, and he was a leader of that. And I took a course in Oriental religions with him, and was invited because I became involved with a group of people he was working with to take graduate classes when I was still a sophomore in the area of mysticism and other fields of religion. So that helped formulate my ideas. But as a backdrop, like many people of the time, I was experimenting on my own with psychedelics, mainly LSD, but also some other medicines. And I did not have a framework to understand what was happening. And like many people, I drew upon Oriental religions to help me formulate what was happening and what I was experiencing. And through my coursework in religion and then later philosophy and then later psychology, I was able to put together a framework to understand what these phenomena were. And I remember when I was first-year graduate student in a clinical psychology doctoral program. I was sitting in the graduate student lounge of my university, and there happened to be a journal copy. It was the second issue of the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology. And when I picked that journal up and started perusing it, it came to me, there's a name for the type of psychology that I want to do and that I'm doing, and that was transpersonal. So that's how I came into identifying with the transpersonal approach and helping me further understand how to, again, make sense of experiences that are not easily understood in terms of contemporary Western culture and in terms of a scientific framework, which is what I have been trying to do to make transpersonal psychology more understandable within this Western cultural context.
Very cool. So when this all was happening, which is it, the 70s? What year?
Undergraduate 60s and graduate school
60s?
started in the early 70s.
So, and at that time, it is my understanding that this type of psychology and everything that related to psychedelic and understanding of human mind was rapidly developing, and then it's kind of stopped, right, at the Nixon time. Is that what happened?
Well, historically, the professional examination of psychedelics was quashed or stopped by legal authorities. There were harsh sanctions in America that prohibited research in this area, and but there has always been, since the advent in the 60s of widespread psychedelic culture, there's always been a countercultural movement, an underground movement experiencing and including of professionals. But there was a long hiatus or stoppage where any research was essentially prohibited, and I'm very pleased that in the last 10 or so years things have changed, and psychedelics are increasingly being seen as a legitimate and potentially important avenue for alleviating human suffering and also encouraging not just personal growth but transpersonal growth. And one indication of this that I think is funny, I spent 3 years recently as a visiting scholar at Harvard, and Harvard has in its psychology building a wall filled with pictures of its most famous and important former professors, a hall of fame, if you will. And many years ago, when Timothy Leary was a professor at Harvard, his picture was on the wall, and then they removed it. And just in the last year or so, Timothy Leary's picture has appeared again. So he is now once more recognized as a major contributor. So I think that's a good emblem of the renaissance or resurgence, as I like to call it, of psychedelic interest.
Learn how to use your eyeballs and operate your brain. So let's run the tape.
Use your eyeballs and...
Yeah, learn how to use your eyeballs. Yeah.
Interesting. Let's see it. Okay. What is that about?
See, the eye, that's going to... In a dark room, this could... Indeed, when we do it in a dark room at EZPD, it produces a mild trance state. And then my voice comes over it, and I'm saying, the eyes are the windows of your brain. Who controls your eyes, controls and programs your brain.
Right.
And all eyes love to illuminate. Eyes love dazzle. Eyes love diamonds, glitter. Eyes today and brains love electrons. Who controls your screen, controls your brain. We're developing methods for the individual, the kid in the third world, for the kid in the inner city school, learns how to control what's on her screen, Operate your brain. Program your own brain. Use the methods of modern advertising, trailers and commercials to put your own message on your brain.
Right.
Otherwise, you'll be programmed by the wizards who control commercials on your television
Is
set.
this relaxing when people see this?
So, Harris, do you think from the spiritual standpoint, the reason that we kind of were stopped from seeing where to go next and took a wrong turn as civilization, maybe we weren't ready for psychedelics yet. Do you think we're ready now?
Well, I think we're not just ready, but we're in desperate need of having a more expansive and adaptive worldview. And I think the assumptions on which Western culture are based, or is based, are being sorely tested in terms of things like climate change and the capacity for human beings to destroy themselves through weaponry and war or in a variety of other ways. So I think we are in desperate need. But with that said, the various historical forces at play that might impinge on this, it's the implications of the experiences that can be had through psychedelic medicine, I think, are profound. The readiness of the world for this shift or change to legitimize once more psychedelics, and I can speak a little bit more about that. You asked about spirituality in regard to this, and that's a topic I would enjoy addressing. And basically, my approach to transpersonal psychology and psychedelic medicine brackets spirituality and tries to avoid that term to a large degree. And the reason that I do that is I see spirituality as implying something that involves spirits, or something that involves that which is supernatural. And I like to think of transpersonal psychology and the experiences that people can obtain through psychedelic medicines as totally within the natural world. It's nothing magical or supernatural, in my opinion, but it's the furthest capacities of human experiences. It's what we can be at our best that is brought forward by these medicines. And it also poses great dangers. I don't want to glorify psychedelics, because I think they also can be very scary and can lead to adverse experiences as well as tremendously uplifting experiences. So as a psychologist who identifies with science, when it comes to spirituality, I like to be silent and say that is outside of the realm of psychology as a science, but we can work with ideas and data that approach this concept of spirituality. But once we deal with spirituality directly, we no longer are relying on natural data. Instead, then we're speculating about things that are outside of the realm of science. So one example that I'll share is that if we talk about unitive or non-dual experiences, we're always talking about that in a dualistic way. We can't, our language, our whole way of dealing with reality just cannot apprehend the whole. We can only point to it. So if I'm interested in studying mystical experiences that might be engendered through transpersonal phenomena obtained through psychedelic medicines, I'm not dealing with the phenomena themselves. I'm instead dealing with people's reports of these phenomena. That's empirical data. Or I'm dealing with psychophysiological measures, such as from quantitative electroencephalogram readings. That's data. But the experiences themselves are elusive, and they are outside the scientific net. And one of the differences I have from many of the transpersonal psychologists, I mentioned the 50 plus chapters in the book I edited recently that can be seen as a definition of transpersonal psychology when taken as a whole, despite that these chapters are from different viewpoints and oftentimes are contradictory. Many people in transpersonal psychology understand the field through their religious perspective. So we have people who understand transpersonal phenomena from a Buddhist perspective, or a Hindu yogic perspective, or a Jewish mystical Kabbalistic perspective, or a Christian esoteric mystical perspective, or from an indigenous perspective, maybe informed by things like tribes that use in the Americas peyote or psilocybin or ayahuasca. But when people try to understand through a religious lens, then they're no longer doing science, in my opinion. They may be scientists, but they are understanding through a religious lens, which is more faith-based or based in a tradition. Whereas as a transpersonal psychologist, I restrict myself to areas in which I can gain access through data, and also I try very hard not to over-interpret that data by addressing ultimate metaphysical questions, but instead look at more pragmatic questions like, do people who take psychedelic medicines become more loving and caring? Do they become more concerned about the environment? And do they take their feeling of interconnection with, say, other species to the point that they are become better stewards of the world? Or do they take the feelings that might open toward feeling at one with all of humanity to becoming peaceful and more advocates of peace, as opposed to more brutal ways for humans to resolve conflicts through killing and warfare? So those are the types of questions that really interest me, and that I think we can answer as scientists through research. Whereas if we deal with religious dogma, religions disagree. And anybody who claims that they have the true religion has to confront the uncomfortable fact that there are others who might say the same about a different religion. But I think transpersonal psychology as a science that is open to these sort of phenomena can be very useful. And where psychedelic medicines have a good role, I'm thinking of a metaphor used by Stanislav Grof, one of the founders of transpersonal psychology, where he talked about psychedelics as being equivalent to Galileo discovering the telescope, or Van Leeuwenhoek discovering the microscope. Now, with the use of psychedelics, we have an instrument to peer into the world in a deeper way and into our own inner experiences. So they're quite a tool, and it's so good that, in my opinion, that now they're open to exploration and to use in like medical applications. But also, I think we need to be, I'm thinking of the sign that I'm looking at above your head, Rita, in moderation with their use.
Yes, thank you. And it feels to me almost like, when humanity was at the point when having the Earth as a flat surface, just the flat Earth that we live on, feels totally perfect and answered all our questions until somebody figured out gravity and somebody else says no, it's round. And then religion, theology, psychology, everything else has to catch up with it to understand how is that not flat. And now we understand that Earth is round, but there's something else we discovered that seems like everything, all the sciences and all the religions, everything need to catch up to explain that phenomenon. And I think that this is what I like the most about psychedelics. It makes us think, makes us being a little bit rebellious to what we know so far, and understand this is just a little door that was opened to us by, just like it was open for Alice in Wonderland. Here's a little key, here's a little door, let's see it explore. And that's what makes me so excited about psychedelics.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's still many people who believe in the flat Earth or its equivalent. So psychedelics can shake up our worldview and can open that door. But it also can happen that people who go through that door all of a sudden fall into, I'll call it a trap, into a set way of being that maybe they reject their own heritage and just convert to another religion, one that's a non-Western religion, because they think it gives answers, and they can become as caught in systems of authority and abuse just as easily as people who stay within their own traditions, which and the Western traditions are actually quite deep and esoteric. I tend to think that when Moses in the Old Testament encountered the burning bush, there's a lot of evidence based on things like the meaning of the terms, that the burning bush was an amanita mushroom. And when we look at the traditions in the so-called Hindu religion, which go back to the Upanishads, there's discussion of soma as being potentially a mushroom also. So these rich traditions maybe got their original inspiration, many of them, from psychedelic medicines, and then they became caught into structures of meaning, and then they became enforced authoritarianly, that if you didn't believe in the way that those structures were set up, then you were, considered an outsider, banished or something. So to me, it's very important to keep a radical openness to what we can learn. And in that regard, I don't think psychedelics teach us anything in specific, but what they do is they help us clear all the previous learning and give us an opportunity to look once more in a fresh way. And but that's where we can get trapped, because we can maybe just reject our tradition and then glom onto another tradition that just happens to be exotic and appealing, without recognizing that it too has its uncomfortable baggage.
Yeah, so seems like psychedelics were prohibited more than once in our cycles of civilization and humanity. That kind of brings me back to the same thought, Maybe we're just ready to see something we weren't ready to see before. And with that comes huge responsibility just to make sure that we are doing with that knowledge what we're supposed to do. Do you think we may be ready?
Well, I don't think that there's anything we're supposed to do. That implies that there's some trajectory that we're supposed to follow, some ordering. I tend to think more that we create whatever it is that we are and will be. And I also think that in of the many planets that might evolve to the point where they have conscious beings who develop technology like we do, that some of them survive and some of them don't. And hopefully we continue to flourish, but we may be one that doesn't survive. But with that said, I think the psychedelic medicines give us another opportunity to look at what we are, and I think they can open up the possibilities that if we see ourselves as radically interconnected, transpersonal, that we will choose wisely, or alternatively, they might lead us into a path where we assume some sort of structure that's very oppressive and maybe destroys our species.
Well, let's hope for the best. And I think I've heard from somebody, and maybe you would know whose quote it is, that if people who depressed, they see glass half empty, and people who's optimistic, they see glass half full. Who's more right and who's wrong? And they said that people who depressed, unfortunately, they're usually more right, but in order to stay healthy, we still have to be half full. So we're just praying and hoping that we're going to take the right approach and going to do everything possible that we can get there.
And hopefully we can tolerate both extremes and just see the glass as it is. It is both half full and half empty. And in that regard, we don't have to be biased to see it in a distorted way. And in that regard, maybe psychedelics can help clear our vision so that we can face it, whatever it might be.
Colorado is going to legalize, it's already legalized, but going to make a full rulemaking and create businesses that will provide recreational psilocybin starting January 2025, 6 months from now. So crazy. So what do you think we're gonna see in the next 6 months? Right now it feels like the world doesn't know quite yet. We're getting ready. And the reason I'm thinking that Colorado is going to be so much better than Oregon, because Oregon already has that similar resolution passed, because I think Oregon kind of done a lot of mistakes and Colorado taking better approach. And I think it's going to be, based on what I see, I think there's going to be tourism to Colorado for psilocybin experience. There's going to be research. There's going to be so much of education, and people will know. Psychedelics will become a mainstream understanding that this is a part of our daily life, our mental health, our understanding of the world. And it's all coming up, but we're right now 6 months before the door will be open. What do you think?
Well, the word that you used that captured my attention was recreation. And breaking that word down to its components, recreational. And this is an opportunity for a lot of people who maybe otherwise would not have explored this avenue to have experiences that might be profoundly important to them. I'm thinking of studies with people that I've been involved with. I was involved with some research at New York University where we gave psilocybin to people who were dying of cancer. And many of these people were tremendously afraid of dying, and they were not facing what they needed to face. They were not putting their finances in order and trying to say their goodbyes to the people in their life who were important. And after the psilocybin experiences, maybe one or two dosages and some integrative therapy applied, many of these people came to peace with the fact that their life was limited, and were able to reconcile with estranged family members, and were able to, think clearly about what needed to be done with all their possessions that they were going to be leaving behind, and they were able to be greatly helped. So I think many people who utilize psilocybin in this sort of way, much good can come out of it. But at the same time, I also think there needs to be a context. And I'm thinking of the indigenous Mesoamerican tribes that have used psilocybin for millennia, and they don't take it lightly. Usually they do fasting and ritual preparation, and they see it as an opportunity to have like a vision quest to re-envision their life, or they do it as a way to seek healing or some sort of reconciliation if there's interpersonal discord. And if people are taking psilocybin to then go and ride a roller coaster and eat junk food and have meaningless sexual experiences while under that medicine's sway, then I think people won't get much out of it, and it can also be hurtful to some people, because a lot of people have trauma and have built defensive structures to deal with their trauma, and things that they have put aside and tried to grow beyond might emerge, and if they don't have proper support, maybe a psychotherapist who could guide them or some other support system, it could be damaging. So I think we will see, and I think anything that is useful can also be harmful. Anything that can heal can hurt, and if people indulge too much in psilocybin, I fear that I'm thinking some of the indigenous populations that talk about harmfulness, that if you take too many mushrooms, you'll age prematurely, you'll have liver problems, etc. So I think people need to use this this powerful tool, this tool that is equivalent revolutionarily to the advent of the telescope or the microscope, to use it carefully and wisely.
Yes, and that's why we are here. We like to explore it together with everybody. We like to talk about it. We like to give people understanding of importance of this absolutely wonderful tool that was given us, but it's also a dangerous tool, and we have to make sure that we're using it wisely. Otherwise, I think civilization might take another turn, and we're going to hear about psilocybin 50 years from now, when somebody's going to just look at them and say, I guess they're not that dangerous. I guess we need to research them again. But I think we'll make it. I'm really hoping for civilization. So thank you so much, Harris. I really want to talk to you about so many things. I want to talk to you about maps. I want to talk to you about history. I want to talk to you about ketamine. I want to talk to you about your, is it called romantic psychology? How do you call it?
I like to make a distinction between romanticism and scientificism or scientism.
Mm-hmm.
And romanticism refers to our yearning to have magic and deeper meaning in our life, but it also sets us up for falling in love for things like a religion that may be authoritarian and brutal, but it offers us the promise of all the answers, and yet the people that run the religion might be very sexually abusive to their followers, or steal their money, and not be doing good things at all. And then, of course, the other thing that I contrast with romanticism is scientism or scientificism, and that is to think that all that can be known is only through the senses, only through science. And when I say that I limit myself to a scientific framework, never do I say that there isn't more out there, that there isn't something deeper and richer, but I, as a scientist, can't address it. I can't really, but I can use what I can use, which is my senses, to understand the world better and to be a better person.
Yes, and it feels like the more we talk, the more we come up with questions, and I love it. I think questions just weigh in so much more than answers, and it's just so cool that we can explore it and discover it and help everybody around us to communicate, to debate, to disagree, but also to hope and pray for the better world. And I really have a big hope about psychedelics. I think they're just so cool that everything that's happening with the psychedelic renaissance is wonderful. And with new science research, with quantum mechanics, with AI, I think we're just opening such cool doors that I'm excited to stay alive. This is so cool. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Yes, maybe we will arrange another one like this. But in the meantime, if all our viewers, don't forget please to like us, to put this interview in your Facebooks, in Instagrams, comment, subscribe. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we hope to see you again soon.